They're not
aligned to us, and the Admiral would
of men around anymore that can honestly say that they did things their way. I don't mean that by necessarily being defiant or rebellious, but in the context of doing what is right, doing the right thing, which oftentimes comes at the expense of personal advancement, financial gain, or public approval and popularity. One such example of someone who stepped forward in an attempt to bring to light what may not be in the best interests of humanity, at great risk to himself, was Phil Schneider. He was a geologist that claimed to have worked in several government black ops projects, digging massive underground bases and tunnel systems, which he claimed was being used towards the eventual enslavement of the planet. Schneider went to engineering school and studied geological engineering and structural engineering that included aerospace and military applications. He trained in explosives and the effect of explosives on structures. He claimed that his first job with the Morrison-Knudsen Corporation, who specialized with construction of deep underground mountain or military bases, also called DUMBs. He claimed there were well over 100 of these subterranean facilities in the United States, and that they're all connected by high-speed tram or by regular underground highways. One of the more fascinating aspects to his story is that he discloses that his father was brought over to America from Germany during World War II and given a new identity to work in classified projects. While I must admit that parts of his story are hard to swallow, many elements of his biography, particularly in regards to being the son of an Operation Paperclip German scientist, are entirely plausible, and the manner in which he died was very suspicious and possibly involved foul play.
I'm Phil Schneider. I worked 17 years for the United States government as a geologist and aerospace engineer as well as a structural engineer. I worked for such elusive occupations with Morrison-Knudsen, Bechtel, Page & Page, Aerospatiale of France, and a host of other EG&G and a host of other, Los Alamos Laboratory and these kind of things. Anyway, my work as a geologist in building underground military bases, some of which are over 2 miles underground, high-speed monorail subway cars, if you might want to call them, that link these bases together. Some of them are capable of riding on a cushion of air about 3/4 of an inch off a rail at a better part of Mach 2. Incidentally, I helped work on 13 deep underground military bases. Had hands-on experience. Notorious was the one in and around the Dulce, the southeastern and southwestern sides of Dulce, New Mexico, in the Los Alamos laboratory regions, where we built some hermetically sealed rooms that were very deep, going down over a mile. We also built additions onto Groom Lake and S2 and S4 complexes. There are a total of 9 underground. They're called DUMBs. Like, you can learn a lot from this dummy, but DUMB stands for Deep Underground Military Base, and or a deep underground DUM2, for instance, is a submarine base, and I have built a few of those too, which are off our continental shelves and then certain islands and out in the Atlantic and the Pacific in strategic locations. My father was a U-boat captain in Hitler's Navy, and he got captured and taken over. I didn't find this out until about 2 weeks before he died on his deathbed. He kind of told everybody in total shock. I was one of them. In fact, I didn't believe him. I thought he was kind of in delirium or something like that. And of course, other things have come up since. And so, anyway, he was captured by the French, turned over to the Third Army, the U.S. Third Army, and then U.S. Third Army turned him over to the Navy. And he was a master machinist. Now, that's not a journeyman. A master means they can take a block of metal and make a gun or a watch or some other fine instrument. And he was a master machinist. He later became an MD doctor and part of the aerospace medicine group of the United States Navy. Was instrumental in helping build the USS Nautilus and its first nuclear-powered predecessor, the Enterprise, the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, and other ships like it. He pioneered all the ways in building very small and miniature nuclear engines, and he even helped work later on in his life. He helped develop the infamous grid bed nuclear motor, which is now employed in some things that look like flying saucers that people claim are flying saucers. Yes, we, in quote, the United States Air Force and other armed forces, are training other European forces to fly unidentified, or now identified, or, in quote, flying saucers. We've actually built several prototypes that are flying under names of black craft. My position as a geologist and an engineer got me to see a lot of things in the world. I've been in over 70 countries. Also worked for NATO. I carried a level 3 security clearance with a rhyolite factor. Rhyolite is a hardened factor, only given out to a handful of civilians and maybe a couple of hundred military men worldwide. I thought I was doing the nation, United States, as well as the world a favor by, I thought I was kind of keeping my end up. Well, it didn't work out that way. By the way, I'm still a geologist, still do geological survey work. However, I don't work for the government anymore. I took my security clearance and all my government stuff and cut it up and sent it back to the, pardon my French, SOBs. When I found out that a number of these 131 deep underground military bases are being used to subvert the Constitution of these United States and its people, I says, that is enough. Yes, this gentleman over here. Speak up, please. Okay. Yes, they are. The gentleman asked, are these tunnels connected to large caverns? Yes, these large bases are basically like this Coliseum. Everything's underground. Everything's a city underground. Most of these bases both have military bases, and they have all the accoutrements of life. Remember, each one of these costs quite a bundle of dough, and some of it in our tax money, but most of it in clandestine approaches, and that's definitely undermining the country. The New World Order right now basically is dismantling countries, governments, telling governments not to war with each other anymore, basically, so that looks good on the outside. Of course, you've often heard of the term Global 2000, and that's a supposed sinister plot, or has been a group of sinister plots to produce biological weaponry to reduce or thin out the so-called ethnic cleanse the population of the planet. It might be where these new designer diseases like AIDS and Ebola and hantavirus and all these kinds of things have come up out of nowhere. And these diseases, in quote, almost have a mind of their own.
Phil Schneider died under mysterious circumstances shortly after this lecture was filmed in 1995. Officially, it was documented as a suicide, but his wife contests that and claims he would never do that, warned against it happening, and that he was allegedly strangled. Even if there was foul play in his death, it does not necessarily validate his claims, many of which are considered by many to be far-fetched. What does lend credibility to Phil's testimony are the numerous other testimonials by other people that have come forward with similar accounts of secret projects in underground facilities in the US, in Germany, and in the polar regions. William Tompkins claims to have had access to top-secret spy information acquired through his naval career during World War II. Tompkins says that his work was partly controlled by the naval personnel who used to work for James Forrestal, the first Secretary of Defense, who was allegedly assassinated because he was going to go public to reveal what he knew about UFOs and Antarctica, where a South Polar colony was said to have been established by a contingent of Germans that did not surrender with the rest of Germany in 1945. This renegade breakaway civilization was likely the true mission of Operation High Jump in 1946, to locate and terminate this final Nazi holdout, which was unsuccessful for the Allies. In an interview given to Gaia TV at the age of 94, here's a brief excerpt from Bill Tompkins giving his testimonial shortly before also passing away.
It's 1942. The war's on. Rick Abada, his hobby is sending these Navy operatives into Germany. They've been going all over Germany, and they're staggered at what they've found. Hundreds of different types of advanced weapons being built. These included 60-foot and 250-foot, 500-foot UFOs, round vehicles, okay, UFOs. They built some of these out of chromoly steel that would weigh tons and tons and tons. They had developed, or they had been given, electromagnetic anti-gravitational propulsion. They have all these UFOs, different types of propulsion that were unbelievable, laser weapon systems, unbelievable stuff. All over the country, Germany and the occupied areas, they had massive underground production facilities that they were using, they had developed for regular arms waste, like tanks and places to build Navy ships and all this kind of stuff. Most of it was underground. So they started expanding those facilities, and they put 11 of these UFO-shaped vehicles in production. So the operatives are trying to explain to us, and the admiral would back off and say, "Slow down, I don't believe you." And that went on, and then the captains would say the same thing. The operatives were nice guys, and they knew they were going to get the questions when they got back into the admiral's office. And they knew that nobody was going to believe what they said. And we were the ones, the only people that this information was given to by the operatives. Forrestal was the #1 person in the country who ran the proper organization, the real organization to handle technically the extraterrestrial. So he was supposed to have had a mental breakdown, so they took him to the hospital there in Washington, the top floor, and pushed him out the window. And so that's the guy that wrote Admiral Rick Abada's mission, which then my mission came from his. That was the level of this information in the United States. So we had a young girl, Nordic, just outside of Germany. Some people talked to her, and they said, "You are now involved in a new program, and you're going to have great support in this program." She had developed I think she had 8 girls. They were continually talked to telepathically to go and design spaceships. The little blonde actually built them. Eventually, two of those got over here in Area 51. But Germany found out about the blonde, took her over, stopped everything, and then got to this point where there was some sort of pressurized program by the SS to control that original group. Now, several times they did work together, but Hitler allowed them to operate independently of the whole SS program, the whole development. So we had two developments going on in Germany. The girls didn't want their vehicles to be used for anything else but travel. They were afraid that somebody would get a hold of it and they use it for military, which is, of course, what they got. But the girls finally ended up in Antarctica in the large facilities. In fact, 3 massive caverns. And so there's cities manufacturing everything that you would need on a planet. 4 years before the war was over, it was decided that the war could possibly be lost, but if we win it, we still need to get out of the area because the Allies are going to bomb us off of the Earth and there won't be anything here left for us. So they decided to move everything to Antarctica. Admiral Byrd, they're going to down there and they were going to take out the whole thing in 1 week. The top people in every area of the Navy, best aircraft, best ships, best weapons, everything. And 5 weeks later, things didn't look very good. When we got down there, they had decided they were going to have one thrust from the west side of Antarctica and then the opposite side coming into both of them towards the center of the continent. And so before we even got all the guys around, and I'm talking about big 4-engine flying boats, okay, and ships, battleships and destroyers and submarines and you name it. Before they got there, these fairly large, they were 100-foot diameter saucers, came up out of the ocean and took down everything. Many of the close-ups give you a real clear picture of the cross on them. But we lost that war. All over Germany and the occupied countries, Germany was building mass production of a dozen different types of extraterrestrial vehicles, okay? So these are in mass production, not just prototype kind of thing. They've gone into mass production using slave labor with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of in-mountain massive facilities. 80% of that had all been removed from Germany 6 months before the war ended. It had all been taken to Antarctica, and they were continuing the construction down there. They had access to these with their submarines. They built massive truck submarines, enormous submarines, to bring all this stuff down to Antarctica. So the submarine, still submerged, goes through these tunnels. They go back through the tunnels and they get to a lake where there's all these facilities and the cities and naval bases and towns and thousands of people.
While Tompkins' testimony also contains some elements that may seem far-fetched, the general narrative is plausible. That Operation High Jump is still classified because it is possibly hiding some untold realities about World War II, how it ended, and the technologies that were developed during that time. At 94 years old, and 1 year before his passing, it's unlikely that Tompkins was making up stories for fame and fortune, and his military credibility adds to the growing body of evidence that points to the possibility that free energy, electromagnetic propulsion, and gravitics exist and have been successfully developed, and that there are groups of Nordic-looking people According to the Greek philosopher Plato, it was a city of immense wealth, being rich in natural minerals and lush vegetation. Atlanteans were said to have built fantastic temples, displayed beautiful architecture, and created magnificent statues to the gods. Having once been a privileged and favored people, the Atlanteans became corrupt and degraded, according to Plato, by interbreeding with mortals and diluting their noble seed, which allegedly descended from the gods. So Zeus gave Atlantis to Poseidon, and it was swallowed up by the sea. Plato said he learned of this myth from Solon, a very respected Athenian statesman, who in turn was told about the Atlantean Empire from the ancient Egyptians, who had retained its memory etched in stone in their temples. Remain a mystery. According to Plutarch, a priest at the Temple of Apollo, quote, Plato, ambitious to elaborate and adorn the subject of the lost Atlantis, as if it were the soil of a fair estate, unoccupied, but appropriately his, by virtue of some kinship with Solon, began the work by laying out great porches, enclosures, and courtyards, such as no story, tale, or posy ever had before. But he was late in beginning, and ended his life before his work. Therefore, the greater our delight in what he actually wrote, the greater is our distress in view of what he left undone. For as the Olympium in the city of Athens, so the tale of the lost Atlantis in the wisdom of Plato is the only one among many beautiful works to remain unfinished. Atlantis was said to be ruled by a confederation of kings, and its power extended over Libya as far as Egypt and over Europe as far as Tuscany. About 8,000 years before the Trojan War, Atlantis attempted to conquer the whole of the Mediterranean world, but was defeated by the Athenians and their allies. Of course, by the time of the Great War of the Gods, after which Atlantis met its demise, it was already a morally degraded society, which had already undergone generations of multiculturalism which weakened their society, ethics, morals, and many of its inhabitants became materialistic, greedy, and a spiritually ugly civilization. According to Plato, quote, for many generations, as long as the divine nature lasted in them, they were obedient to the laws and well affectioned towards the God whose seed they were, for they possessed true and in every way great spirits. However, the Atlanteans became corrupt. When the divine portion began to fade away and became diluted too often and too much with the mortal admixture, and the human nature got the upper hand, they then, being unable to bear their fortune, behaved unseemly, and to him who had an eye to see, grew visibly debased. So, what did Plato mean by mortal admixture when he said that the Atlanteans' divine portion began to fade away and became too diluted too often by the mortal admixture? While this passage has been the topic of much speculation and debate for centuries, it is only recently that modern science has unlocked the secrets of the human genome, not only sequencing the DNA of human races across the globe, but also sequencing the genetics of the various pre-human hominins, such as Neanderthal, Denisovans, Homo erectus, and other upright walking hominins, which in an anthropological context are not considered modern human. In biology, taxonomy is the science of naming, defining, and classifying groups of biological organisms on the basis of shared characteristics. And despite what many people think, it is not quite set in stone. In other words, it's constantly changing as new discoveries are made, and there's an ongoing debate as to how a species is defined, as in many cases, different organisms which have clearly different attributes, such as having a different number of chromosomes, can still produce viable offspring, yet by most standards cannot be considered the same species. An example I often give is the distinction between lions and tigers, which have a lot, while male lions are even thought to be lazy in a way. Lions generally like to live in large groups called prides, where one male is usually in charge, and it's the female lion who hunts for food, bringing prey back to the pride, as the male lions rely on females for their meals. On the other hand, tigers prefer to live and hunt on their own. Tigers hunt for their own prey in the jungle, and then eat their catch alone. Therefore, one can say that lions are definitely more sociable than tigers. Yet despite these behavioral and physical differences, due to having different genetics, lions and tigers can produce viable hybrid offspring together, called ligers. Traditionally, it was believed that ligers are sterile, but recently a liger in a zoo in Munich, Germany gave birth. The father was a lion and the mother was a liger, so gene flow and hybridization can and does happen, and it has happened between different hominin species in humanity's past.
On May 16th, 3 female liger cubs were born at the Novosibirsk Zoo.
This is the second time Zita has given birth. Last fall, the young ligress gave birth to a female cub named Kiara.
That said, like lions and tigers, the various upright walking hominins are not all the same. They did not have the same IQ, which is an attribute of genetics, and they did not behave the same either. While some hominins, such as Cro-Magnon, developed agricultural communities, which is attested to by their prominent chin and lack of prognathism, an agricultural trait, meaning how far the mouth sticks out from the face. Other hominins, such as Homo erectus, have never displayed any agricultural civilization for millions of years, always living as hunter-gatherers in small packs, without any advanced tools, such as bow and arrows, or bifacial tool technology used in spears. Cro-Magnon lived in larger agricultural communities, domesticated animals, such as horses and cattle, had a much larger cranial capacity, and produced fine art while living together in strong communities. Homo erectus did not behave the same way, did not produce the same tools, was not seafaring, did not produce architecture, did not produce pyramids, did not domesticate animals, ride horses, chariots, have a wheel, or travel the world. Modern humanity, to various degrees, are a combination of these various traits in genetics, and for this reason, different demographics behave differently, the same way that tigers, lions, and ligers all behave differently. Some of these cats like water, some do not like water, and likewise, we can see variation in human behavior, variation in human intelligence, variation in athletic performance, and community or social skills. In this context, one can better understand what Plato might have been alluding to when he spoke of admixture of the Atlanteans, which altered their civilization and degraded it into something more violent and, in his words, visibly debased. Of course, this genetic hybridization is mirrored in the passages of the Bible, such as Genesis, and similar works, such as the Book of Enoch, where it says that, quote, "And it came to pass, when the sons of men had increased, that in those days they were born to them fair and beautiful daughters, and the angels, the sons of heaven, saw them and desired them. And they said to one another, Come, let us choose for ourselves wives from the children of men, and let us beget for ourselves children." In modern times, many people have equated these ancient myths and biblical stories to scenarios that one might hear in the UFO community, where interactions between people from space and people on Earth also result in hybrid offspring. One example of this theory was put forth in 1958 by alleged UFO contactee George Van Tassel, who worked for Douglas Aircraft, Hughes Aircraft, and Lockheed.
All right, my friends. My name is Bishop Holsonback. This is my YouTube channel and my Facebook group, and I want to welcome you to tonight's program. My friends, that was pretty interesting video there. I'll let the video speak for itself. But what I have to say tonight is, my friends, Nazi Germany gave up their motherland to seek new lands beyond the ice ring. Yes, my friends. You heard it from a colonel tonight, my friends. You heard it. I try to piece these videos together for you tonight to lay it out here to you in the best way I can. Well, what is the United Nations doing with the flat Earth map as its logo? See right above my shoulders here? That's a flat Earth map. I mean, a flat Earth map, and the UN has it as their logo. My friends, please wake up. You've been lied to. And you don't hang your head and say, "Oh, poor me." You hang your head up high and you proclaim Yahweh's name. Because line number one was to hide your Creator's name, Yahweh. In 1611, King James and Bacon took out the name of Yahweh and added God and Lord. That is a title, not a name. Our Creator wants to be called by his name. This is not a Jew thing. You know, my friends, Yeshua. And you know, let me throw this in real quick. When you're pronouncing a Hebrew word, it's from the right to the left. Yeshua. See, my friends, Yeshua is the Son of Man, and it means salvation. And it's all about our salvation. All right? Yahweh could care less about your crutches if you're a cigarette smoker a midnight toker. He could care less. What he's looking at is your heart. Do you yearn for him? Are you praying in Yahweh's name? Are you meditating? See, because my friends, this is how you're going to build your power. You're going to have momentum power, my friends. And you get this power through prayer and meditation. All right, my friends. Please comment in the comment box. I'm using some new software tonight. All right, my friends. And behind me in the background here, I have where the ice ring. And what I'm stating is Nazi Germany gave up their motherland to seek new lands past that ice ring. Check this out, my friends. In 1942, they didn't mention this, but I have it in other videos. In 1942, the entire world allowed Nazi Germany to change the hertz from 440 to 440 to 432 hertz. Why would we allow the entire world allow Nazi Germany at the ending of the war to change the hertz for the entire world? My friends, this is how they got in touch with the fallen angels, is through hertz and frequency and vibration. Don't pay attention to me. Pay attention to Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla states, if you want to understand the keys to heaven, you must understand frequency and vibration and hertz. This is coming from Nikola Tesla. All right. My friends, this is how they got in touch with the fallen angels, is through hertz and frequency. All right. Do you really think it's Japan and China putting out this technology? They might build it. It's the fallen angels. They link the technology to the Fourth Reich. The Fourth Reich links it to the world. And you can take that to the bank. All right, my friends, let's talk about Enochian magic. Enochian magic. What is Enochian magic? What is Enochian mysticism? I'm gonna break it down for you tonight, my friends. All right. There was 200 fallen angels that fell to Mount Hermon. Azazel, Zamizal were their leaders. We know this because the book of Enoch tells us this. I've been studying the book of Enoch for well over 10 years. All right, my friends. And the book of Enoch tells us the fallen angels, when they fell to Mount Hermon, they created a deed. And that deed was that they had sex with women and created the Nephilim. All right. And after they did this deed, they go to Enoch and they say, hey, Enoch, go to Yahweh and take our case to the Most High. So Enoch acts like an attorney, right? And he goes to Yahweh, but Yahweh says no. And he sends him to Tartarus, hell, for 70 generations. My friend, 70 generations was up in the 1800s. How did we go from horse and buggy to shooting rockets up in less than 100 years? Less than 100 years, we're shooting rockets up. How? The fallen angels got released from Tartarus. Not all of them, but some did. All right, my friends, somebody had to teach Cain Enochian mysticism. All right. My view is the 200 that fell to Mount Hermon, they went to the land of Nod as well and taught Cain. Or Lilith. And who did Cain teach? He taught the bad Enoch. Who did the bad Enoch teach? Tubal Cain, Nimrod. See, Tubal Cain, he made metals, art. He was a mighty warrior, just like Nimrod was too. Yes, my friend. See, our Bible tells us that Nimrod was once a human being that became a Gibborim, Nephilim, Raphaim. It's all the same thing. How did he become a Gibborim, a mighty warrior? Through Enochian mysticism. This is how. And this is what today's elite are trying to do as well, is become a Nephilim, Gibborim, Raphaim, some type of Nephilim is what they're trying to do. And I'm a proud human. I don't need their Nephilim stuff anymore. You know, I asked Gary Wayne this question. Let me throw this out. I'm being led to say this. I asked Gary Wayne, Gary, what is Nephilim culture? You know? And he says, look around you. What ain't Nephilim culture? We're in end times right now, my friends. We're in end times. All right. And it's all about our salvation. All right. Enoch in Hebrew means teacher. NASA in Hebrew means to deceive. Okay, my friends, but most of all, Ashua, from the right to the left, when you're pronouncing a Hebrew word, Ashua means salvation. And my friends, it's all about our salvation. You know, and like I was saying, Yahweh could care less about your crutches. You know, he's looking at that heart, because your heart puts out a hertz, a frequency. Yes, my friends, your heart puts out a hertz frequency, a vibration. If you can connect your heart hertz to your brain hertz through prayer and meditation, you're going to start manifesting big things in your life. You can take this to the bank, my friends. I mean, check this out. Yahweh loves. It's all about love. All right. We've been look. People want to go. Well, the King James Bible says. Well, you know what? The King James Bible has been pencil whipped, just like Enoch 2 and 3 got pencil whipped. The King, there's lots inspired, like just like in Jubilees, the Book of Jasher. There's a lot of inspired stuff in these books, but they've been, they say, oh, they're bad, biblical and apocryphal books. My friends, I've been studying them for well over 10 years, and they've connected the dots for me. All right. And that's why I just want to share this information that I have learned with y'all. How many people we got tuned in? All right. I mean, I'm using a new system. I usually network. I usually use BeLive.tv. Tonight, I'm using Restream. It's a new network, and I think I'm going to continue using this network. If you like to do what I'm doing, please check out Restream. All right? All right, my friends. Let's talk about the United Nations. What is it doing with the flat earth map as its logo? The elite do not hide things. They put it right out there for you to see. All right. It's up to you to seek. It's up to you to comprehend. Right. But most of all, it's you. We need to seek, my friends. And this is what I have done. And I just like to bear fruit. The things that I have I have found in my research. It's been a rabbit hole, my friends. I've been down many, many rabbit holes for us. All right. But my friends, you've been lied to. And it's very important, the name of Yahweh. There is so much power in the name of Yahweh. He will bless you. He will heal you. They don't want you to know these things. They want you to think you're a sinner. You're a sinner. You're a sinner. That's what, you've been taught. Yahweh says no. He loves us all of his creations. He loves us all. And he just wants us to love in return. He wants us to yearn for him. He wants us to build a conscious contact. He wants us to build a relationship. And how do we build this relationship? Is in prayer in Yahweh's name. I challenge you to go out and pray in Yahweh's name tonight. I challenge you to do it the next night and the next. And watch. You're going to manifest. You're going to start building things in your lives because you're building a conscious contact, a relationship with Yahweh. And this is all he wants. He can care less about your crutches. He can care less about your sexual habits or this or that. What he's looking at is your heart. Your heart, my friends. That's just what Yahweh's looking at. All right? All right, check this out, my friends. I was talking about Enochian mysticism. I was talking about Enochian magic and how Cain taught the bad Enoch, right? And how the bad Enoch taught Nimrod, right? And Tubal Cain, right? Doesn't it make sense? Am I connecting the dots for you? This is what the elite in today's time want to do. The same thing as Tubal Cain, same thing as Nimrod did. This is what they do, But my name is Bishop Holsonback, and this is my YouTube channel and my Facebook group. And I want to thank y'all for tuning in. And what this channel is about exposing Nephilim culture. My friends, this channel here should be well over 25,000 people. And why I say that is because I've been kicked off air about 4 times on YouTube. And I got a Facebook group with 25,000 people. It's a group called Seeking Yahweh's Word on Facebook. Please come join us. All right. There's like-minded people in the group. All right. It's called Seeking Yahweh's Word. There's 25,000 members. So I started that group the same time as I started the YouTube channel. We all know they're hiding views and this and that, but it's okay with me. Because if I can touch that one person out there that hasn't heard Yahweh's name, that's all what I'm about. I ain't about no money, no fame. I'm a nobody. I just want to proclaim Yahweh's name to the masses. All right, my friends. If anybody wants anything prayed for tonight, please comment in the comment box. Then I can read your comment, and then when I start praying, I know what to pray for. All right? My friends, I'm here to testify. I want to talk about the firmament real quick. I want to throw the firmament in because if I don't put the firmament in, it doesn't all make sense. All right. 17 times in your Holy Bible, firmament is used, but nobody knows what the firmament is. My friends, the firmament is to protect you from different realms and different dimensions that are above us. Yes, there's different dimensions and realms above us. And the firmament protects us from these different realms. The sun, the stars, the moon are inside the firmament. This is what our Bible tells us. This is what I'm going by. It doesn't say I live on a ball. Over 200 times there's flat earth Bible verses. And what should drive it home for you is the UN. What are they doing with the flat earth map as their logo? What's going on there? My friends, that should be proof right there. All right. My name is Bishop Holsonback, and I want to thank everybody that's tuned in tonight. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Let's do a little recap. There's much power in the name of Yahweh. All right. Enochian mysticism, Enochian magic was started by Cain. Who taught Cain? Lilith, or one of the fallen angels that fell to Mount Hermon. Who did Cain teach? The bad Enoch. Who did the bad Enoch teach? Nimrod, Tubal Cain. Why do they want to learn Enochian mysticism? Become Nephilim because they're human, right? This is what today's elite are trying to do, or what they are doing. All right. Please bow your heads and pray with me. Father Yahweh, Father, we offer ourselves to you to build with us and to do with us is thy will. Relieve us of the bondage of self, Father, that we better do thy will and not our own will. Take away these difficulties, Father, because you are the beginning and you are the end, Father. Please allow us to see this in our walk. Father Yahweh, there's people out here that just heard your name for the first time tonight. Yahweh, Yeshua. These are the ones that need to be blessed, Father. They need to see your magnificent power, and I ask you to put hands on them, Father. I ask you to bless them, Father. They heard your name for the first time tonight. They're going to go home and pray in your name, and they're going to see this magnificent power happen. Amen, brothers and sisters. Amen. Much love. All right. Everybody, Gary Wayne will be on our show October, the third Thursday in October. And Derek Gilbert will be here as well. About 2 months ago, I had some bad audio and etc. happen, and I wasn't able to broadcast Derek Gilbert and Gary Wayne. Well, I pulled everything together. I got them back on the show. Then they'll be here the third Thursday in October. I'm not too sure what we're going to be discussing, but we will be exposing Nephilim culture. So please like, subscribe. I got a Facebook group called Seeking Yahweh's Word. And like I said, Gary Wayne is here every single month live. Thank you.